What I want to do today with you is help you to level up your audio production in your podcasts, your audio you're putting together for projects, whether that be as part of a corporate team or whether or not you're doing a hobby, bit of, side hustle. My hope is that I can help you understand how easy it is for you to really maximize the quality potential of your audio. To do this, what I'm going to use a free piece of software. It's called a DAW, a digital audio workstation, and it's called Audacity. This is free of charge, freely available, open source software that you can download immediately. Just Google Audacity, and all the privacy concerns that were around about a year ago, you might have heard, they've all been solved now. All the terms and conditions have been updated. So it is now one of those things that I feel comfortable recommending to new or up-and-coming podcasters, or maybe even podcasters that have been dabbling with, premium tools, but budgets are tight, and now you're thinking, can I save a few pennies? So before we get started then, let me start off by sharing my screen with you where we are using said tool Audacity for this particular session. So let me just find Audacity in my screen. Easier said than done. There it is. Right, okay. Thanks, Audacity, for trying to screw me up right from the very beginning by hiding from me in my StreamYard window selections. So as you can see here, this is what Audacity looks like when you first fire it up. So it can be a little bit overwhelming for some people in terms of, what it looks like. What do all these buttons do? What are all these features? How can this possibly help my podcast sound great? I'm going to talk you through that step by step. So what I'm going to do, this is, if you're in Britain or, you've ever spent time in Britain at any point, you'll probably be aware of the Blue Peter 80s, here's one I prepared earlier thing. We're not going to do that. What I'm going to do, I've already produced this episode. It's been published. I'm going to talk you through, and I did it in Adobe Audition. So let me just, first of all, let me make that quite clear. I don't use Audacity day to day with my podcast production, okay? It's not something I use every day, so therefore I'm a little bit rusty with it. I've had to give myself a bit of a crash course in Audacity because the last time I used it was probably about 7 years ago. So I'm not an expert in Audacity by any means, but that's what's so great about this is I get to show you how quickly someone who never uses Audacity can get this working and making your podcast production sound epic. So what we need to do before we even start with this, I'm going to run you through how I created an episode of a podcast I produced called Texas. Before we get moving with the editing stuff, we need to add the audio. So we're going to do that right now. Hopefully it's come straight into, you can see the produced episodes here. There we are. Those are the two episodes, the master version and the release version. I always make two versions of it, one higher quality, because, if we need to sort of keep that audio for clients or, for repurposing later on, you've got a higher quality, less compressed version. And then we send the more compressed version because the apps they buffer. They basically don't like high-quality, high-bitrate files. So if you send them a slightly lower-quality file, they tend to play without incident. So that's why there's those two versions of the finished file there. You're going to hear that when it's released, so you can sort of compare what we've done today in Audacity with what it sounds like when it's done in Adobe Audition. There will be subtle differences. Okay, so let's add in the audio that we want to add in today. So we want the intro sequence, we want the outro sequence first and foremost, and we are going to want the actual episode audio as well, which, so as you see, it brings it into the multi-track here. So we got the intro sequence here and the outro sequence. Don't worry, I will talk you through this. So it's going to look overwhelming if you've never used this before. So now what we want, and I'm going to have to scroll down because, of course, I keep every single bit of audio I ever create, just in case. Let's go and get the actual audio that we want then. So we want episode Texas 85. We want the audio. Now, where have I saved that? There we are, Texas 85 audio. So there we are. We have the 3 audio files that we need. So we got the intro sequence here. We got the outro sequence here. We won't be needing that for a while. And then we got the main audio here. Now, as you can see, it's 9 minutes long. Well, give or take the little bits, stumbly bits. Like there's the end of it there. And then we got a bit at the beginning here where Mark, the host, is taking a breath before he starts delivering. We've got the 7 seconds pre-roll here, as I call it. It's the bit that I encourage podcasters to do, where they tease the content and let the listener know what is coming up in the episode. What you're going to notice first and foremost, I'm not going to make you sit through the whole 9 minutes of audio of this being edited. So we're going to assume I'll do a bit of editing with you. But my assumption at this point is you know how to chop audio up. You know how to, whether you do it in Otter transcription, whether you do it in Descript, whatever you do it in. Maybe you do it in Audacity. So this is the point, really. We're hoping that you are already versed in basic editing audio in waveform view. So in other words, this isn't here, but this waveform is here, and you edit in that. And then I'm assuming you probably append the audio as you go. So you have your intro sequence, that stops suddenly, then your main audio, that stops suddenly, then the outro sequence, which is what, to be honest, most podcasters do. And the whole point of this is to teach you another way, a better way, using multitrack. So you'll notice here the intro audio, we've got it's a bit quiet, then it goes loud. So we're going to assume that's where a voice, where something happens, like the music gets louder, maybe a voice comes in, that kind of stuff, and then it gets quiet again. So what we've got here, we've got a pre-roll, we've got a main intro bit, then we got the tail. So the tail is the bit that the presenter can talk over. So it's a bit quieter, allowing for, the voice to cut through, essentially. Now, this is pre-produced. I've set this to be the right level for the simplicity of this session. However, the way I have it set up in my template on Adobe Audition is that can be manually controlled. But just for the simplicity of this, just to get this, get across the content to you as quickly as possible, the learning over to you as quickly as possible, I've set this so it's a standard level. We're going to move the outro here already because we know we're not going to need that yet. So what we're going to do, we're going to start by sorting out this audio here. Now, let me play it to you.
If you're an IT manager and you love the thought of a nice, relaxing holiday without phone calls to deal with IT disasters, then you need to listen to this week's episode of TechSess.
Okay, so that's what we got going on. So obviously what it's done is it's played the intro music over the back of Mark's intro there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you. Let's mute that. This is what it actually sounds like.
If you're an IT manager and you love the thought of a nice, relaxing holiday without phone calls to deal with IT disasters, then you need to listen to this week's episode of TechSess.
And then, of course, there we go. The music kicks in. Okay, so what we need to do, we need this audio that Mark is talking here to come in a little bit closer to the actual intro music. Otherwise, it sounds awkward, as you'll hear.
This week's episode of TechSess.
Blah, 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 blah.
If you're an IT manager.
And of course, so we won't have that because that's the next bit. So what I'm going to do, first and foremost, we'll solve that problem straight away because we're going to chop this bit of audio out. Okay. Now, the temptation will be to delete that audio, but what we need to do is we need to split this audio first and foremost so that we can actually move these clips around. Otherwise, it makes life a bit more difficult. So what we're going to do, we're going to get rid of all that because we know, I can play it to you if you want. What that is, it's just mic rumble and fumbling about, as you heard. So
if you're an
we don't need that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of all that. There we go. That's gone. Now we know that we need to move this audio of him continuing the episode after the intro. So at the moment, let me mute this. This is what it will sound like.
On your favourite podcast player to ensure you don't miss future episodes.
And then it fades. So what we want Mark's audio to kick in as soon as that intro is done with. So as you'll now hear, it will do that.
Ensure you don't miss future episodes.
If you're an IT manager,
it might be a bit early, so we'll tuck it back a little bit more. We can sort fades and things out, but just for the simplicity, just to get through this is how we'll do it. We'll move it a little bit later.
Podcast player to ensure you don't miss future episodes.
If you're an IT manager.
There we go. Sounds good, doesn't it? So, but we've still got the issue of the audio at the beginning still being a little bit off the actual intro.
And get the best from your technology investment.
Right, so that's already not playing ball. I did tell you that I don't use Audacity all the time, so there's a lot of quirks to it that I need to remember what they actually are. So let's go. Let's zoom out. Okay, we've zoomed out too far there. There we are. Right. Okay, so we've now got back to the intro again. So here we go. So
relax and holiday without phone calls to deal with IT disasters, then you need to listen to this week's episode of TechSess.
So as you can hear, it still has a little bit of an awkward kind of. There's a bit of time, isn't? Oh, it's done it again. Sorry about it. There we are. Get rid of that. We don't want that marker. What are you giving me a marker for? Let's get rid of that. Right. Okay. It's still there. Right. There we are. Hopefully that's
this week's episode of TechSess.
No. Okay. We've still got a quirk there, so we need to get rid of that. So there we are, loop on off, that's what it is, and we need to clear that off. There we are, clear loop, right, good, that's done. So we need to move this audio here to be closer to the intro for obvious reasons, as I've already established, and that means that what we'll probably want to do as well is we'll probably want to bring this audio in a little bit so there's not quite so much awkwardness, and then what we'll do is we'll see how that sounds.
If you're an IT manager and you love the thought of a nice...
Now, I can hear what you're thinking in your head. Well, that's a bit sudden, isn't it? So let's try that again in a different way. So as you can hear, it's a bit sudden the way it starts at the moment.
If you're an IT...
So we're going to stretch this back out a little bit. So there's a nice little bit of a build. But what we're going to do, we're going to add a volume envelope. And that is the envelope tool. What we can do here is we can tell the audio where it needs to come in and where it needs to fade. So because it's right at the beginning, we know that we want it to come back in around here. So this is the beginning of it. This is where there's no talking, and then the talking starts here. So this is where we want the music to fade underneath his voice. So it's kind of like it's not there, then it's quietly coming in, and then it gets louder. So where we want it quietly coming in, we're going to need to set an envelope there. And what we're going to do, we're going to slightly fade it in. There we are. So as you can see, the waveform has actually shrunk in this waveform. So if I play this now to you, you will hear how different it sounds.
If you're an IT...
It could still do with being a little bit on the quieter, on the less sudden. So what we're going to do, we're going to squeeze it down even more. There we are. So it's a nice, gentle fade.
If you're an IT manager and you love the...
So that takes away the harshness, the suddenness of that audio coming in, okay? And just remind you that you do that through the envelope tool. So let me talk you through that again. Let's undo that, and I'll talk you through how we did it. So it's a bit harsh. It came in harsh. I know it comes in here. The voice comes in here. So I want the music to be at its full volume at that point. So envelope tool, left-click that, then set the envelope there, and then squeeze it here right at the end, just by literally dragging down while holding the left mouse button, and that will give you that effect. And then we can play it back to check it's right.
If you're an IT manager and you love the thought of it...
There we go. So as you can hear now, if we play this sequence, it's going to be a bit snazzier.
If you're an IT manager and you love the thought of a nice, relaxing holiday without phone calls to deal with IT disasters, then you need to listen to this week's episode of Tech.
Boom.
I'm Mark Riddell, and this is the TechSess.
And we're into the intro, and then the outro. The main audio comes in off the back of the intro.
Podcast player to ensure you don't miss future episodes.
If you're an IT manager in a business, then you know how challenging...
Okay, so that's the intro. That's added on now. So that sounds great. The problem is the main audio now. We've got, if you heard that, now let me mute this track for you so you can hear the raw main audio underneath. So here we go. So let's play that back again.
If you're an IT manager in a business, then you know how challenging it can be to manage the IT operations of your organisation with limited resources. In today's episode, we're going to talk about a solution that can make your life easier and improve the efficiency of your IT operations, and that's co-managed IT services. And if you're not...
So as you can hear, there's a couple of things going on. We got a couple of mic thuds where Mark has touched his microphone or he's touched his table and it's made a vibration go through the microphone. We got some slight mouth noises. If you listen here.
We're going to talk about a solution that can make your life easier and improve the efficiency.
Easier.
And improve the efficiency of your IT operations. That can make your life easier and improve.
If you hear that,
that can make your life easier and
there's a little bit of mouth noise, and then we've got. Oh, it's gone back to the beginning.
Make your life easier and improve the efficiency of your IT operations, and that's co-managed IT services.
So there's a lot of mouth noise going on. We need to probably deal with that as well.
B, to manage the IT operations of your organization with limited resources. In today's episode...
And can you hear that as well? What else am I hearing here?
Today's episode, we're going to talk about a solution that can make your life easier and improve the efficiency of your IT operations.
Can you hear that? There's some background hiss, which is quite common because most podcasts, when they're recorded, the person recording them probably has a lot of background noise. Now, if I stay quiet for a moment, you can hear there's absolute dead silence. And the reason for that is that I have a noise gate. So the noise gate, what it's doing is it's cutting out all the background noise. So I might have my dog playing downstairs, barking in the garden or, a noise generally happening in the house. But you won't hear it because it's been gated out. I've set a minimal decibel volume that needs to come through to the microphone recording in order for it to pick it up. Okay, and you use outboard units for this. So I use the Rodecaster Pro, which is a piece of kit which you can connect all your audio devices to, and that has an on-built noise gate. However, you can do the same thing with digital audio workstations in the post-production process. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk you through how that works. I'm going to play this to you again because I want you to hear the difference once this is applied.
If you're an IT manager in a business, then you know how challenging it can be to manage the IT operations of your organization with limited resources. In today's episode, we're going to talk about a solution that can make your life easier and improve the efficiency of your IT operations.
So you've heard that now. So what will it sound like when we apply a noise gate? Well, what we all do, here's how you apply the noise gate, okay? And there's something you need to do to prep your audio before you apply this noise gate. Don't just click the noise gate on and play with it, because what you'll then find is that your audio will sound a little bit robotic if you're a bit overzealous with it. So what we need to do, first of all, if you watch this,
you're an IT manager
see
in a business,
these meters here.
You know how challenging it can be to manage the IT operations of your organization.
That is telling you the playback level of the audio you're putting through Audacity. So what we're looking for is where you see it's peaking.
If you're an IT manager in a business, then
just outside the red, or just in the red,
to manage,
which is fine. It's getting nice hot volume. What we're looking for is where it stops.
In today's episode, we're going to talk,
as in where it gets at its quietest.
If you're an IT manager in a business, then you know how challenging it can be to manage the IT operations of your organization with limited resources. In today's episode, we're going to talk about a solution that can make your life...
Okay, so in a couple of places it drops down to -24, but I'm going to play it safe here because obviously what we don't want to do is have really juddery, jumpy audio where the gate is getting too keen. So what we're going to do, we're going to dial it back to -18, -20. So we're going to go into Effect. We're going to go into Noise Removal and Repair. And we're going to go to Noise Gate. Now, as you see, it brings up a window for me where I can make lots and lots of changes. So the most important thing we're looking at here is the gate threshold. The gate threshold is telling Audacity the point at which it stops audio coming through. So in other words, if it's quieter than -18.3 dB, the audio cannot come through. It needs only audio that is louder than -18 dB. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to tell it to reduce the level to -25. Now, again, what you'll have to do with your own audio, you'll have to have a look at where that bar is moving to and make a judgment call on where you think the average volume is. There is a much more precise way of doing this. And, obviously podcasters that have been doing this a while will know what those are and the ways we can use spectral analysis and all this sort of stuff. But the point of this is it's a basic audio engineering workshop. So what I'm trying to do here is teach you some quick wins that you can get that will very quickly improve the audio quality of your podcast episodes. So we're going to stick with the simplicity approach here, and we're going to go for minus 18.3 as the threshold. So that should hopefully reduce a lot of that background sound and quite a few of the mouth noises as well, although there will be some manual that we need to add to that. And we're going to reduce it by 25 dB, minus 25 dB. Okay, so that's going to take minus 25 dB level out of the audio. We're now going to click apply, and subtle change. You didn't really see much, but you could see the waveform changed. It did it in real. Let me show you again in case you didn't notice that. Undo the noise gate. We'll do it again. In fact, we can just do it this way. Redo noise gate, and you could see the waveform slightly changed. So let's have a listen to what it sounds like now.
If you're an IT manager in a business, then you know how challenging it can be to manage the IT operations of your organization with limited resources. In today's episode,
you can already hear a lot of the mouth noises have now already gone. The thudding is still there because it's mic thud, and that's not going to be taken out by a noise gate. That needs to be taken out manually. And if you were going to do a really advanced edit in this, you would go into the spectral analysis and you would take those frequencies out manually. But again, we're not there yet. This is literally the point of this, is showing you how you can quickly make massive gains in the quality of your audio. So we can already hear the hiss has gone.
Organization with limited resources. In today's episode, we're going to talk about a solution that can make your life easier and improve the efficiency.
It's got that broadcast sound to it now. You know, when you listen to the radio and it's gone through the processing and it sounds really nice and rich on the air. It's got that very distinctive broadcasty sound to it, which is really nice. So, you know, a lot of the work now has been done. However, we are still going to go through and we're going to sort out those finer points.
If you're an IT manager in a business, then you...
So, as you can see, that is a lot better.
Business. Then
that thud is barely
business.
there.
Then business.
If I undo the noise gate, you'll hear it better.
Manager in a business. Then...
Boom. Do you hear that?
Manager in a business. Then...
See, that sounds a lot better now with the noise gate on it.
Key manager in a business. Then...
So all I need to do now, to really get rid of that, all I need to do is literally cut that out. But here's why we don't do that.
Business. Then...
Do you hear that? It sounds very...
In a business. Then...
robotic. So we don't do that. And this is what I try and tell people. When I do a lot of talking on podcasts and webinars and chats and tutorials and teaching moments where I talk about editing and getting rid of what doesn't need to be there. And a big part of that for me is filler words. Now, of course, when people say, oh, don't get rid of all the filler words because then it sounds robotic, what that means is they don't know how to do this part, okay? Yes, if you just chop this out, then that is going to sound robotic.
In a business. Then...
Business, then... But we don't want to do that. What we want to do, we want to make it sound natural. So what we're going to do, instead of just cutting that audio out, that thud, we're going to split the clip. Okay, so that then gives us a bit of space. So although we're going to be removing the audio in the middle there, and we'll have a listen to what it sounds like. I predict this won't sound great. It'll sound a bit sudden, but we'll have a listen.
Business. Then...
So what we can do about that, business...
Business. Then...
And the slightly sort of harsh out and return. So again, it's our old friend, the envelope tool. So we can kick in here, we can pop a little marker in there, and we can tell it to squeeze that audio down so you barely hear it.
Then you know how challenging it is. Then...
Okay, and then we're going to do the same on this side. We're going to tell it to bring that audio in a little bit more gently. Okay, I need to zoom in a bit for this. There we are. Right, so yeah, so that needs to come across here somewhat. There we are. You can see the way the waveform is. There's a bit of a click there, which is an absolute giveaway of poor quality audio. Right, so there we are. So we've now got. Hopefully, this will sound a bit better.
Then
it is still a little bit on the harsh side, but it's certainly better than it was. Now, again, if I was doing this in Adobe Audition, I would absolutely I need to move that out the way. This is another quirk of Audacity, that it puts little random marker lines everywhere, and you have to be mindful of where you are. If I play this now,
then
it's still a little bit on the harsh side. So what we might need to do is we might need to actually squeeze that a little bit more. Oh, no, we don't want to go that way. We want to go this way, and we want to bring that down again a little bit. There we are, because it was a bit. So let's see what it sounds like now.
Then business. Then
So it sounds a lot better. I might be tempted to tuck that away a little bit more just to give it a bit
business.
more.
Then you know how challenging.
But that sounds a lot more natural now. If you listen to that again.
IT manager in a business, then you know how challenging it can be to manage the IT.
And we got the other thud there. So we need to sort that other thud out. So again.
B.
It's better than it was with the noise gate gone. We're too far along now with the undos to do it automatically, but I'm sure you'll remember what it sounded like before. So what we're going to do, again, we're going to come in here. We're going to split this clip. We're going to remove that audio, which we need to do that way. Bloody Audacity. Then we're going to get rid of that marker, so it doesn't stop us from dragging the audio back. And we're probably going to do the same. Let's have a listen.
And it can be to manage that.
Yeah, so it's a bit robotic. So envelope tool, pop him in there, bring him down so he's a little bit less harsh. Play it again.
It can be to manage.
And we're going to pop him slightly to the side a bit more where it was.
It can be to manage.
And again, pop an envelope tool on there to make the audio. Oh, no, that was not what I wanted to do at all. Right. That's why. There we are. Let's pop that down like that. Maybe drag that slightly more in. There we are. And let's see what that sounds like now.
B, to manage how challenging it can be to manage the IT operations of your organization with limited resources.
Now, again, if I was doing this in Adobe Audition, I'd be a lot more precise with it. I'd be a lot more finer. I would take out those frequencies that are leading to that harshness of the edit. But even without that, it still sounds better than it would have done had you left that audio in with all those mouth noises and all the microphone being bumped and all that sort of stuff. It does sound quite natural. If you listen to it, it sounds natural. It doesn't sound robotic.
If you're an IT manager in a business, then you know how challenging it can be to manage the IT operations of your organization with limited resources. In today's episode, we're going to talk about a solution that can make your life easier and improve the efficiency of your IT operations, and that's co-managed IT services.
Now, there would be an incidental stab that would come in here, but for the sake of simplicity, we're not going to play that. But as you can hear, just from that first 58 seconds of audio, we now have a much cleaner piece of audio with a nice intro that comes in and ducks in the right place, and it gives you a much more professional, polished sound.
And if you're not an IT manager,
we do have mouth noise here.
IT services. And if you're not,
so again, what we're going to do, we are going to make sure that with this, we might not have to do too much to it. If we split that clip and then we get rid of that audio, let's have a listen to what it sounds like.
Co-managed IT services.
No, we definitely do. We definitely do need to get rid of certainly the tail end of that.
IT services.
There's a little bit of clipping on there, so we definitely do need to get rid of that clipping.
Services.
Yeah, let's see how that sounds.
Services.
That's much better. So we would now be able to, once we've got rid of that annoying line. Oh, hang on. There we are. Once we've got rid of that annoying line, we can drag this audio over so it's a bit more natural.
Services. And if you're not,
it's a bit too soon. Makes it sound a little bit unnatural.
Services. And if you're not,
but as you heard with that, I didn't even need to do too much in terms of the fading. I didn't even need to use the envelope tool. That would be sufficient if you've been producing podcast episodes that have been edited in waveform view with very little finessing, very little in terms of the production. Then this already sounds like an improvement on what you've been doing before.
And if you're not an IT manager, but you have one in your business, make sure you tell them or send them a link to this episode, and they will owe you
Again, there's some mouth noise here, so we are going to, because it can be quite unpleasant sometimes for if you've got listeners that have got really nice headphones that bring out all the audio, then if you're listening along in the car or on a smart speaker, you're probably not going to notice it as much. But we've got to think about all of the listeners here and what sort of devices they're listening on: earbuds, headphones, high quality headphones. So again, we're going to just split that clip. So in case you didn't know how to split the clip, by the way, it's a right click, right button. So you hit the right button, you select split clip, you then can drag this audio away, and again, you just move those out. I don't know why I keep doing that, because I don't need to do that. There we are. And then that one there. So just pull it along. It turns into a drag hand, and then you can play it and see what it sounds like.
Link to this episode, and they will owe you dinner or at least a huge box of chocolates for it.
So again, lots of mouth noise there. So we're just going to get rid of that. Right click, split clip, drag that audio away, drag this audio away and bring that over here. And there we are. And hopefully that will sound good.
At least a huge box of chocolates for it. So if you're not familiar,
there's a little bit of a half a breath there.
So if you're not,
and that's a common thing. I hear that on a lot of podcasts where people have they've done the editing, but they've forgotten to clean up afterwards. So if we do this,
it's for it. So if you're not,
so we'll just get rid of that so it doesn't have that
chocolates for it. So if you're not familiar,
and as you can hear, it sounds much, much better. And again, we're just going to, oh God, now what's it doing? It really doesn't like me today. Because there we are, right? That's better. With Audacity, it can get tricky because little bits get stuck in places and you have to sort of backtrack and think, right, what did I do last that's made that happen? But it's because it's quite a clunky tool. However, it's free, so you get what you pay for.
Each box of chocolates for it. So if you're not familiar with co-managed IT services, or you're unsure about the benefits for your organization, then this episode is a must listen. We're going to be exploring what co-managed IT services are.
With this one, we can just delete it.
IT services are, what a co-managed service looks like, and the benefits it can provide for your business.
And again, you heard there,
looks like, and
that mouth noise.
Service looks like.
So we're just going to, once again, just left click to highlight the section, right click, split clip, drag the audio away, drag this audio there, get rid of that marker, and then bring this back over. It's really that. And you've got literally, it shows you there from that's the gap that was there with the mouth noise, so you can make it sound natural.
What a co-managed service looks like, and the benefits.
Let's do that again.
Looks like, and the benefits it can provide for your business. And by the end of this episode.
And again, there's a mouth noise there, so with this one, we can just delete it. Oh, bit too far. That's going to clip half of the. There we are, half of the word following it.
For your business. And by the end of this episode, you'll have a clear...
Now that's a little bit, again, we got a half breath in there kind of sound, so we're just going to drag that over here.
Business.
And split that clip. There we go. Move that. Move that. Drag that over here. In fact, I'm going to drag a bit. Yeah, there we are. Drag a bit of that audio, and that's going to, of course, that's going to be in the way. Of course it was going to be in the way, Neil. Bloody Audacity. I'm really not a fan of Audacity, if I'm honest, but, we just for the simplicity of it and to show you how quickly you can do this, that's why I'm choosing to use this tool.
Your business.
Yeah, there we are.
Business. And by the end of this episode, you'll...
So that might still be a little bit on the harsh side. Let's try again.
Your business. And by the end of this episode, you'll have a clear understanding of how co-managed IT services can not only massively benefit the business, but also how co-managed IT can help improve your own work and personal life.
And as you've heard, the breaths are just not a problem anymore. They sound quite nice. They're decent to listen to. They're not intrusive. Just going to get rid of that. Now, so what we're going to do, we're going to jump to the end now because I think you get the idea. So we've already edited 2 minutes of this podcast episode. So you've got an idea now. You know how to reduce the harshness of the breaths and the mouth noises. There will still be mouth noises you've got to go in that are creeping through the noise gate, but there's far fewer than there were. Now you're armed with the ability to take out noises. Like if there's background boom volume rumbling, mic rumbling. You can't do too much about that unless you get better at this job and you start looking at the spectral display, spectral analysis, and start manipulating the frequencies that way. However, just on a basic level, you've now got the tools you need to be able to clean up your audio much more effectively. You now know how to put an intro in multi-track mode on your podcast episode, and now you're going to learn how to put the outro on it. So same principle. We're going to drag this outro sequence out here. Obviously, we got some sort of post-recording audio there that we don't need. That's going to be Mark either saying, there we go, or, moving around his microphone or whatever. But what we're going to hear now is what it sounds like as the outro sequence starts to play quietly underneath the end of the episode.
Of their IT systems.
I'm not going to do any more editing, so if there's bits here, just understand, we're assuming this is edited to the way we want it to, even if there's clips and, noises and stammers or whatever. We're just, for the principle of showing you how this works, we're just going to stick with that.
And by partnering with an external IT service provider, you can access that wider range of IT expertise, free up your internal staff to focus on more strategic.
And again, this outro sequence has been pre-produced, so if it was the actual original volume, then it would be loud and we'd be enveloping it down. But we're just, at this point, we're just showing you how you can make it easier for yourself by pre-producing your intro and your outro at the volumes you want it to, make it easier for you to put them over your main podcast episode audio.
What do I mean?
I knew that was going to happen. I absolutely knew that was going to happen. Let's try to get back out again. Yeah, this is why I get annoyed with Audacity, because it is clunky and things can change. So we were here.
IT costs.
As you can hear, the audio is now, music's getting louder.
Experts M3 can help you with a co-managed
I can already
IT
tell that's coming in a bit
service.
too
Just get in
soon.
touch.
So I'm going to just stop that. I'm going to drag it slightly more. There we are.
About how our team of experts M3 can help you with a co-managed IT support service, just get in touch. And to get started, you can book a free 15-minute, no obligation call with me by visiting m3networks.co.uk/meet Mark.
Texas is an M3 Networks podcast. Find out more at m3networks.co.uk.
Okay, so that is the entire podcast episode. We need to unmute that. So now, when we have the podcast episode edited the way we want it to, how do we get it squeezed down? So we got 3 tracks here, and ideally we want this in one stereo track, don't we? So what we're going to do, we are going to combine them. So that's left click and highlight them all like that. Okay. And what we want to do, we want to, before we mix these down and save them, we want to make sure that everything is at the volume we want to. So what we're going to use here is called a limiter. And to get that, we go into volume and compression. So that's effect, left click effect, drag down to volume and compression, then across to limiter. Now, you might have your own preferences on how you want to do this, but with my audio, I like to limit it to -6 dB. So it's not quite in the danger zone of, distorting. It's not 0 dB. It's just a little bit, there's a bit of headroom there, which allows for the next stage as well. But I like to do it at -6 dB. That's kind of where I like it to be after many years of doing this. So I'm just going to apply that. That is now going to limit my audio to -6 dB across the board. That's music, voice, everything. I'm also going to add in the compression. And to do that, I'm trying to remember where this is. There we are, compressor. Again, volume and compression, compressor. So effect, volume and compression, compressor. Okay? And I want that to be at -9 dB, which obviously this is from when I was practicing with it yesterday. There we are. It's still set to -9 dB. So that is the volume I compress all audio to, so I know it's a nice clean signal that's all nicely squeezed together and will sound pleasant to the ears. We're not done yet. Okay, today would be nice. It's only a 10-minute episode, Audacity. Come on. This is why Audacity is not my favorite tool to use personally, but there we are. It's going to make life easier for you. which is what this is about. Good Lord, it is taking its time, isn't it? There we go. Finally did it. So now what we want to do, I need to find it first. There we are. Loudness normalization. So what would go effect, left button, volume and compression again, loudness normalization. Now what this does is this sets the master volume for everything it's going to be listened to. So that's apps. So the industry standard is between -16 and -12 LUFS. It is technically -16. I used to master audio to -16, and then I realized that there are other podcasters that like to master to -14 because they like their podcasts to sound a little bit louder. The differential between -16 and -14 isn't anything to worry about. It's not going to get people screaming as they turn their volume down on their car stereo. So I'm quite happy to go in at -14 and play on their level playing field. So there we are. So make sure that normalize stereo channels independently and treat mono as dual mono are both ticked. Hit up and make sure it's on perceived loudness as well. That will definitely help you because that's what we're going for. We're going for the perceived volume in your ears rather than the actual volume. Right. Now it's moving. So it's going through all the audio and normalizing it to make sure that it's all the same volume. There we are. So that's now done. So what we do now is we can go File, Export as MP3. You could go WAV or OGG if you want, but no point. MP3 is good enough, certainly in the apps that we're going to be sending it to. And there we are. So there's one I practiced yesterday, which was just learning how to do it. I just rushed it through. So what we're going to do, we're going to save this as Texasly mastered audio. There we are. We want this at 192 because we want it master, the master version, as I showed you before. We would then resave this as a 128 kbs file afterwards, but there we are. Save it, Texas, properly mastered audio, master, 192 kbps, save that. Your tracks will be mixed down and exported as one stereo file. Yes, please. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. This is where you could change things, so you could give it the actual episode name that you want it to have. Year 20. I mean, we're not worried about what year it is on the spit. I'm never going to use this again after this, so that's absolutely fine. But there we go. It gives you all the options to change the metadata. Hit OK. That is now exporting. And there it is. There is your exported MP3 of the Texas podcast. So as you saw there, we took you through an exercise where we showed you how to edit podcast audio in multi-track view. I showed you how to apply a noise gate so you can get rid of a lot of those harsher sounds straight away before you even start the main edit. So you got rid of a lot of your breaths, you got rid of a lot of the mouth noises, then it's just a case of whichever ones still creep through the noise gate, you can manually get rid of those. I showed you how to fade in and fade out using the envelope tool here. Really handy piece of kit that. I would suggest that you do that across the episode. When you've got bits where it might sound a little bit like harsh, maybe there's some sudden bits of audio that kick in during your main recording mix, you can take those out, make them subtle, squeeze them down. You can squeeze down whole sections. All you need to do is hold the left mouse button and you could literally just do this and then hit the envelope tool and then squeeze down the whole like that, you see. Whatever you select, it will squeeze down. So it's a very handy tool. We also showed you how to compress it and to normalize it so that it is at the industry standard of audio. So I hope you found that useful. That was Basic Audio Engineering Workshop from Podnose Podcasting. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me using either of that or that. There's the QR code and there's my actual LinkedIn address. Feel free to approach me and say to me, Neil, I would like you to explain a little bit more about this bit or that bit. Or for any other feedback you would like or follow-up you would like, I will be happy to talk to you. But I would like to say thank you very much for joining me for this workshop. There will be other workshops coming as well. We'll probably do an advanced audio editing workshop using Adobe Audition. And in the future as well, we'll also have a look at things like Descript and how you can actually use these tools for video editing as well. I hope you found that useful.